Hi friends, I'm Felicia. Welcome back to my channel. Apologies if I'm a little bit crooked. Like, I just feel like I can't get my camera level for some reason. So, sorry if it's crooked and it's driving you nuts. I don't know. I can't tell. My eyes are crooked. Like, I hang everything on the wall crooked. So I can't tell. So sorry. Anyways, so today I'm going to be doing my May wrap-up. I read 7 books in May and all of them were really enjoyable. Most of them were 5 stars. So I'm just going to tell you about them now. The first book that I finished in May, which I already mentioned in my April wrap-up, so I won't talk about it too much here, but that was Orange Volume 2 by Ichigo Takano, and that's the second part of a two-part bind-up of a manga series. And so this is a YA manga series, and the basic story is that a high school girl receives a letter from herself 10 years in the future, and in the letter she talks about some of the regrets that she has from this time in her life. So she would like, her future self would like her present self to do what she can to avoid these regrets. And so that's the basic story. And overall, I did enjoy this series, but there was a main plot point that I found kind of problematic, and I think I talked about that in my April wrap-up. So if you want to know what it is, I'm pretty sure I talked about it, so you can go there and find that out. The next book that I finished was The Library Book by Susan Orlean, and I listened to that on audio. It was narrated by the author herself, which is always, it's usually a treat. This book is kind of part true crime, part ode to libraries, which I love libraries, so I was into it. And it follows, the true crime part follows the, I think it was 1987 LA Central Library fire. So there was a fire that happened and it damaged a significant portion of the library and thousands of books, like maybe even 1 million, I'm not even sure, like it may have even been millions. But I'm not sure if I'm thinking of books or dollars of damage. Anyways, many books were ruined and damaged, and it was a really tragic fire. And so it goes into kind of, the lead up to this, telling about the day and the events of that day, and then also following the investigation that happened after, and, trying to figure out, was this arson, what happened, and kind of that story. The rest of the book kind of details the history of libraries in the United States, and then more detailed on the libraries in Los Angeles, and the author's own experience with libraries, and kind of what libraries are now and how they've evolved from when they started to what they are now, and what they all provide for people and what they are to people. So I really enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed the whole book, and if you like libraries, I would definitely recommend it. And if you like true crime, I would recommend it. Best of both worlds. So, and I'm not, okay, I always say I'm not a true crime person. Maybe that's not true because this was interesting. I don't want to learn about serial killers. I'm not into that. This was interesting. So yeah, I would recommend it if you like libraries and books and stuff. It was good. It's so rainy and gloomy today. It's delightful. And I picked up a London Fog from Tim Hortons on my way home from work. And it's actually, Tim Hortons has a pretty good London Fog. I mean, it's kind of basic, so. I wanted to go get bubble tea, but I told Chris that, and he was like, don't get bubble tea without me. And I was like, okay, fine, I won't. So we're going to get bubble tea tomorrow. The next book that I finished is a book that I actually own, and that's The Next Right Thing by Emily P. Freeman. And this is kind of based on the author's podcast of the same name. It's comprised of short chapters that kind of feel like a podcast episode in themselves, which is kind of neat. I have not listened to like every single podcast. I'm kind of like a casual podcast listener. So I don't know like if some of these chapters are episodes, like, you know, exactly like episodes, or if they're different topics or what. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how different this is from her podcast. But anyways, so basically the idea behind this book and the podcast is that it's just full of short chapters with different strategies that help indecisive people make decisions, basically, and like creating room in your mind and in your soul to breathe and to listen to yourself and what your heart is saying. Like, that sounds kind of like woohoo, but it's actually like very, very sound, and like it's very biblically based. The author, this is a Christian author, and so she does involve, like, you know, meditating on scripture and, you know, bringing things to God and things like that. And so, like, bringing that together, like trusting your instincts and also like seeking wise counsel, things like that. So yeah, I really enjoy this book because I am a super indecisive person. Very indecisive. And there were definitely nuggets in this book that I have taken and have applied to my life already. I'll read you a little bit from my favorite chapter, chapter 20, which is called Pick What You Like. So basically the author was in the middle of a garden center, and she was just completely overwhelmed by all of the plant options, and she wasn't really a plant person, so she didn't know what she was doing. And she's like, how do I know what the right plants are, like what's going to grow in my yard and what's not, and how do I take care of it, and all these kinds of things, which I relate because I'm not a plant person either. So she's just standing there, she's just so overwhelmed, and she's like, this is the dumbest thing to be overwhelmed by, but I am overwhelmed. And then I'll just read you this little quote. While I am standing here looking at plants, a phrase arrives in my mind complete, like a green leaf falling onto grass in summer. Pick what you like, then see how it grows. In my head, it sounds like my own voice, but it doesn't feel like my idea. So that line jumped out to me, and I think that's the thing that I think about the most from this book. So I definitely related to that, and I think about that a lot. Like, that's good advice, you know? I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoy Emily P. Freeman and her Instagram and her podcast, so I would definitely recommend checking this out if you are interested in that. I'm skipping a book to put it after this book to talk about all of my maybe mid-rash books at the same time, because it was basically those three in a row. So the book that I want to talk about now is Anne's House of Dreams by Ella Montgomery. So this is book 5. But guys, what I found out, so what I was hearing a lot in people's wrap-ups from April with Anne of Windy Poplars was like that it's not a favorite. And so when I was entering this into my spreadsheet from Brock of Let's Read, where I keep track of all of my reading stats for the year, I realized that this book was published like 15 years before book number 4, and this is book 5. So I was like, what? So yeah, apparently Anne of Windy Poplars was the 7th book written in the series, which is weird. So yeah, I'm not sure why Ella Montgomery did that, but anyway, so that's why that book kind of feels weird, because her writing, I guess, changed, and yeah, so that was interesting to find out. So anyways, this is the 5th book in the series, and I absolutely love it. And I would say that this is like maybe my second favorite in the series after the first book, or tied at least with Anne of Avonlea. I was like, what's that one? But yeah, this one I think could stand alone for me, just to like, if I need, I need to read something Anne of Green Gables, I can read this one instead of reading the first book. Yeah, I really love this one. It feels very cozy and familiar. And yeah, definitely loved it. So that's that. How much can I say about the 5th book in a series, like, without spoiling it for people that haven't gotten that far yet? Not that much. Okay. So moving into my maybe midrash reads, I read 2 fiction books and 1 nonfiction. Yes, I did say that right. So the first fiction book that I read, that was a tongue twister apparently, was The Sparrow by Doria Russell. And I listened to the audiobook, and this book is heavy. So the basic premise is that it's about a group of Jesuit missionaries that are on a mission to make first contact with a newly discovered sentient species on a planet. And so the story is told in a non-linear format, which I personally love in books. So it follows the present of the story, which is set in like 2060, and then the past, which is like our current time, which is also 20 years in the future from when it was written. So whatever, it was written in the mid-90s, so that's kind of funny. Anyways, so there was a lot to unpack in this book and to think about in regards to the themes that the author explored. Definitely a worthy, maybe midrash read. There were so many themes of... There's just so much. I can't even put it into words. I need to like sit down and write out a review so that I can actually like talk about this book. Maybe do a standalone review. I don't know if you want that. There are other standalone reviews out there, so I don't know why you would need mine. Anyways, yeah, like I'm trying to talk about it and I just don't know what to say because I don't want to spoil it. I knew hardly anything about this book going into it, and I think that helped my reading experience. And overall, it was worth reading, even though it was very heavy and hard to read at times. Like, some of the things that happen they're rough, and like I had to take breaks sometimes. So it was not an easy read, but I think it was worthwhile, and definitely some of the the themes, like I keep saying, the themes that the author was exploring, they're definitely worth exploring and thinking about. It definitely doesn't put God in a box that can be nicely closed and wrapped and tied up with a bow. That's definitely not what is happening in this book. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And it was interesting to me to find out a bit of the author's personal backstory with religion as well. She grew up Catholic, and then she was an atheist for a period in her young adult life, and then ended up converting to Judaism after she became a mother. And so you can definitely see each of those facets represented in this book as well in the characters. And so I thought that was really interesting that she could take that personal experience to enrich her characters and their personalities and their backstories. There are like kind of all levels of belief in God represented in kind of the main characters. So we have atheists, agnostics, people that profess to be Jesuits, but then they might not necessarily believe in God the same way that other main characters do. And so we kind of have like a spectrum there. It was interesting to see how the characters kind of would flow through these different states, some of them throughout the story. I thought that was interesting as well. So if you're a sensitive person and you don't like to read about difficult subjects and events, I don't know if I would recommend this book. Not that I enjoy reading about those kinds of things, but like I said, in the end, I think it was worth reading, and I'm really glad that I read it. There is a follow-up book, which I am interested to read, although this does work as a standalone, but it does follow the kind of main character from this one, so I would be very interested to see what happens in the next one. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a break, but I'll probably read that in the future. My second fiction read for maybe Midrash was Gilead by Marilynne Robinson, and I buddy read this with Rainy from Rainy Day Reads, and we both really enjoyed it. And I listened to this on audio as well, and I regret that because I really, about an hour in, I was just wishing for a physical copy to annotate, to be able to go back and read some of these sentences again, because her writing is so beautiful, so gorgeous, just like absolutely lends itself to reflection and pondering life and existence and God and creation, and it was just beautiful. So the basic premise of this is that it's told from the point of view of an elderly minister. He has, I'm not even sure, he has a medical condition. I don't remember if we ever find out what it was, if he ever states it, or if I just forgot. Anyway, he's writing a letter to his young son, or kind of a journal, I guess, of his life. He got married late in life, and to a younger woman who was still in like her mid to late 30s, while he was like almost 70, and they had a son, and so he's writing this book. He's 77, and he has a 7-year-old son, and so he knows he doesn't have, you know, a lot of time with his son on earth, so he's writing this kind of this journal about his life and his experiences, and, you know, just things that he wants his son to know. So that's the basic premise of it, and I just absolutely adored it. Like I said, it's hard to describe the feeling that I had reading this book, but it was just, it felt like it was just, you know, it was just in my heart, and I just was enjoying myself immensely reading this book, and definitely, like, I kind of wanted to just immediately read it again, and I might just buy a physical copy and read it immediately again once I get it. That's kind of how I feel about it. And there are, I think, 3 more books kind of set in the same community, or similar, some of the same characters. I'm not sure. But I'm definitely going to be reading those. The reflections of the main character about God and relationships with him and with each other, and, you know, creation. It just, it was just so wonderful, and I would really recommend this book. Like, please read it. It's so good. And interestingly, there was a bit where the author, or not the author, the minister, the main character, I guess, he's writing about his experience being a pastor during the Spanish flu. So that was interesting to read during this time. Not a lot has changed, apparently. We're pretty much the same. The last book that I read in May was Still by Lauren F. Winner. So in her first book, which is Girl Meets God, she talks about her conversion from Judaism to Christianity. And in that book, she definitely has that kind of like newlywed enthusiasm about Jesus and her relationship with him, and it just comes out on the page. Like, you feel that. And in this book, she is talking about a time in her life where she went through a period of feeling stagnant and doubtful and unsettled. Her mother had passed away and her marriage ended, and so now she's kind of just in this state of upheaval, and along with those events, she's also just feeling totally disconnected from God, and so she's kind of searching for that meaning again in being a Christian and having this faith in Jesus, and if that's something that she still wants to pursue. So that's kind of the basic starting point of this book. And so The way this book is told is it's split into 3 parts. And the first part is mostly memoir, some reflection. And then by the last part, it's mostly reflection and a little bit memoir. I thought that was a really nice, like, just transition through the story. I thought it worked well. Lauren Winner is such a beautiful writer. Like, just something about her writing makes me feel so introspective, and like I just want to sit with a journal and just write and ponder what she's writing about and what I think about it and how that relates to me, and just like all of these things that come up when I'm reading her books. Like, it's such a nice experience reading her books, I guess. And again, with like the beautiful writing that I just want to like sit and read the same sentence like 5 times just to get it in my head. It just is a wonderful experience. I would really recommend that you pick up her books because she's a wonderful writer and more people should read her books. That's how I feel. So those are my books for May, for Maybe Midrash. Thank you to everyone that participated in Maybe Midrash. That was a lot of fun. It was a great experience to be a co-host, and even though I didn't, I had a hard time kind of in the middle of the month, socially, kind of retreated, and so I didn't really engage with people as much as I would have liked, and I'm sorry about that, but I did really appreciate all of your comments and interaction on my videos, on the other videos out there, that had to do with this event. And yeah, I was really pleased to see such a positive response to it. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it. Yeah, and I think this is planned to be a yearly event, so I look forward to taking part next year. I definitely have more books that I could read, you know, so there's definitely not a shortage of material. I'm looking forward to that already. But yeah, so that's all that I have for today's video. Let me know what you read in May. Just anything that you read. What was your favorite book that you read? Or something that you hated and you need to vent about? Like, just let me know. And yeah, let me know how you're doing. Yeah, things are starting to ease up even more in Manitoba. Like, comparatively, we have like almost no coronavirus in the province. Right now there are, last time I looked this morning, there were 9 active cases, which compared to the rest of the world is just like, okay, this is like nothing. So we're very fortunate, and I think it's just, I think I keep talking about this, but yeah, so things are starting to open up. I got a haircut. My bangs are a little a little bit short. I think like I got a good over an inch cut off my bangs. But I'm settling into them now. I had my birthday, which I posted a video on my birthday, so you know about it. And my husband gave me these earrings, which I just love, and I've worn them every day since. And yeah, I had a nice birthday. We just got some takeout for supper from a restaurant that we like in town, and then we came home and we ate it, and it was kind of rainy and gloomy all day, which was very nice. And yeah, we ate supper, opened a bottle of wine, and we watched Roman Holiday, which Chris had never watched before, which it was nice to share that with him, I guess. He's such a pleasant man. He's so what's the word that I'm looking for? Not amiable. Amiable? Nah. He's so just, you know, he lets me watch the movies that I like to watch, and he sits and enjoys them with me. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. I hope that you all have a really good day. Thanks for watching, and until next time, so long, and thanks for all the fish.